Okay, welcome after lunch on day 3, still going strong, hopefully. We're going to kick off the session we are in room 2, just so you're in the right place. And I'm pleased to welcome Wallace Chase from the University of Otago, and he's going to give us an insight into University of Otago's greatest and unique resource, their student internship program. So join me in welcoming Wallace.
All right, thanks everybody. All right, so I'm here today to talk about, as I said, what I think is one of our greatest unique resources that we have in the higher education sector. So in order to do that here, I'm going to switch into another mode here. And we're going to talk about baseball. So how many people in here know anything about American baseball? I guess I don't need to say American baseball. It's not like soccer or football where there's a confusion there, right? So American baseball is what we're talking about, not Finnish super baseball, although I'm very intrigued now about that. When you think about baseball, and if you know anything about it, there is such a thing, and there are intense, actually, scientific papers on this you can go and read about how baseball works and how people progress in baseball. So you want to be a baseball player, you're 8 years old, you got a little bit of talent, or dad's just really pushing you in that direction. How do you get there? How do you do that? And there's a whole system within baseball of going up through the minor leagues into AA, AAA, all that, and you kind of progress up. And the reason for that is that it's a skill. It's something that you have to learn how to do. It's not something that you can learn entirely out of a textbook. You can learn the rules, you can learn all these things, but you just have to practice it. You have to do it in order to do that. And this system allows you new players to do that, to move up through the ranks there, as you go to say. And I was spurred on to this a couple of weeks ago by one of my managers who wrote this Teams message to me because he knows that I love baseball and I'm constantly making puns and stuff about that. And he said, my aim is to provide the best service compared to any other university or channel partner engineer. I'm developing a farm system similar to Major League Baseball. And that really does kind of explain our internship program and why we do it and why I'm so passionate about it. So who am I? So my name's Wallace Chase. I'm the head of infrastructure currently for the University of Otago in beautiful Dunedin. And as you can tell by the litany of icons up there, I've worked in a whole bunch of different places in my career, not just in the higher ed sector, but all over the place. So let's start with kind of where we are today. So we're in a very competitive market when it comes to talent. We have rapidly rising, fluctuating salaries. Anybody who's been hiring in the last couple of years knows that what people are expecting in the market is just all over the place. In New Zealand, we have a pretty unpredictable immigration environment as far as bringing talent into the country. The local talent market is rapidly becoming global. So somebody can work and live in Dunedin and be working for a company somewhere else in the world. Do we have any examples of that in here today? I know he was sitting there, so I was going to point to him if he didn't. So yeah, so I mean, you can literally work for any company around the world and live wherever you are. I think you're doing a little bit of the same too, aren't you, Jonah? And we have just a generations of students now that are digital native. They've grown up with computers and computing and all the things that come along with that from birth, basically. So I hear this a lot. There's no one to hire. We can't compete with the private sector. We hire and then they leave 2 years later. They get a little bit of skill and then they leave. So if you go on to, there's some really wonderful material that the New Zealand Digital Skills Forum has put out. And the report is a couple years old at this point, but it is very good and I think very valid today. I think all the trend lines are actually doing what we expect them to do after the weirdness of COVID there. But this is just kind of saying, the projected digitalization, how many new jobs are going to be coming available in this sector over the next many years. So 149 million by 2025. If you zoom into New Zealand a little bit more, you can see that there's just very high demand for digital skills across all these different employers and different regions within the area. And the demand is just really, really, really high. And you look at some of these numbers and you see how many visas were approved and how many new jobs were created and stuff like that. And our answer can't be to just bring in all the talent that we need. We also have a major problem when it comes to diversity in our digital technology space. You look around this room and it gets better every year, but it still is a lot of people that look a lot like me, and there's no reason for that other than just a myriad of history there. So that's something that we need to change. So more focus needed on education, upskilling, and reskilling. The one that I've got starred here in this particular infographic, only 352 students were able to get internships in 2019 after 2,699 registered for the opportunity. That's a problem to me. Okay. This will all be available obviously afterwards, so you can read this in depth, but just kind of the gist of it here is that both interns and employers report satisfaction and value in internships. It's not a one-sided thing at all. So here's kind of some of those benefits that employers and both the students themselves have shown. Doing useful work, injecting energy and curiosity, staff benefit, all these things are shown and proved out in the data here. So where do we sit in this whole equation? So we have a problem. Our problem's almost worse in some cases than the private sector. And on our very campuses, we have the next generation of IT. We have the next generation of these folks here. We need to leverage that. So when we start to talk about that, one of the first questions I get is, how do you get students to work for you? How do you even get these folks to pop up? And one of the biggest things here is that you must sell it. You must be the one to champion it. And I mean that for every individual person in the room. Too many people wait around and say, well, when the I wish the IT department would do this, or I wish the director would prioritize this, or I wish that, or something. Somebody has to be the champion of it and start standing up and saying, hey, I'd really like to utilize some students, some internships, that sort of thing, and actually sell it back to the institution. Okay, so once you're a year or two into this, it starts to sell itself. It's beautiful. It starts carrying on a momentum of its own, and it starts to just work all on its own. Don't be afraid of non-IT majors. Some of our best student interns that have come through the program have been from law, from HR, from finance, from all these other disciplines. It's not necessarily just the IT majors that are the ones that do well in this. They do great often, but other disciplines are just as valuable there. Working directly with the academic departments, I know me and David just had a conversation the other day about this a little bit more. And then thinking about what will the students actually get out of this? What is the value that you're providing to them, not just for you? And as I said, the recruitment, it gets easy really fast. This is an example that just came in not that long ago, a student reaching out to us saying, hey, I would really love to have an internship in cybersecurity. And we get more interns coming our way now. We barely even have to recruit other than just letting people know that know that these things are out there. So some examples from around the world, because it's not just here. And these are just all pulled from my career directly, because I've got a lot of knowledge of that. So Clemson University in the US and South Carolina, we had a massive cohort of student interns and student employees working for the university, including the Security Operations Center for the university, which was completely run by students with just 2 full-time staff supervisors running that Security Operations Center. And it's a model in the US for security operations centers across the higher education and the private sector as well. So I ran the networking team there, and I had student interns that worked, and we didn't have the greatest office environment, but you can tell that there they are working away and helping us to deploy wireless access points, for instance, across campus. Washington State University, same thing. We had approximately 20 in the help desk, 10 in desktop support, 2 in networking, and 4 in cybersecurity. University of Otago, today, basically. We have our student IT team that helps out with basically all requests for service that come in from the students go through the student IT team. The infrastructure team, we have them in networking and telecommunications, systems, operations, digital workspace, enterprise architecture. We've had architecture interns last year, assurance and cybersecurity, and then even IT recruitment. So we had an HR a student that came in, worked for networking for a while, and then asked me the question and said, what can I do that actually links my HR experience with what I'm doing here in IT. And so set her up with HR and said, hey, we recruit many staff every year. How about you work with them and see how that works and how different it is in that environment? So the Otago program itself, there's basically two main parts to it. One is a one-year fixed-term full-time employment role. We have approximately 4 students in that at any one point in time. And that's done during the done via the Otago Business School. So it's actually a paper that the students take. It is their only class for that year. They come work for us full time, and they do this reporting back and get mentorship through the business school. So we've also brought in other sources from Tipakinga, Otago Polytech, whatever they're going to call themselves tomorrow here. We've had good luck bringing in folks from there as well. And as I said, the internship is a paper for the business school. So they actually take a year off from their main studies and come work for us. And this is then we have part-time employment, often designed for interns that are coming back. So you've done the full-time internship. We'd love for you to continue your employment, but you also have to go back to school. Because one thing I tell all the interns when they start is that if you don't graduate, I won't hire you full-time. Period. End of story. You can be the greatest person in the world, but if you don't graduate, I'm not hiring you. So yeah, and we make this employment very flexible as their papers are the priority. So if they start to get run down by the stuff and that sort of things, they have class schedules change, all that kind of study groups. We make sure that we're very flexible around their scheduling. So it is an investment. The university does have to put out resources in order to do this. The interns in the networking program receive full Cisco CCNA training and certification within the first 3 weeks of joining us. And we do other training, which is actually quite pricey if you're in the IT space, such as eRangahau, Wi-Fi, RF survey training, all these types of things, examples that we do within the, for the interns. We basically provide them with the same amount of training that a full-time career network engineer would get in there. This is a force multiplier for us. They can do things like survey the entire campus every year for Wi-Fi. You know, the University of Otago campus, we have over 400 buildings just in Dunedin alone. It's a big project. My full-time engineers just simply couldn't do that without the help of the students. So once the program was established, returning interns are able to mentor and train the new interns. It becomes self-sustaining in a way, and those returning interns then start to get leadership and coaching experience and all these other soft skills that'll help them in their career. And even after only 3 years of this being in place at Otago, the return on investment has been far greater than expected. The manager that I quoted there early with the team's message, he was very, very nervous about this whole thing when it started. Wallace, I don't have time to deal with a bunch of students. I don't have time to do this and that sort of thing. Now, he's every year coming to me asking for, can we have an increase in the budget for the students? Can we get more? I've got 6, can I have 8? Because they're such a big deal for his team. And then the last bullet point there is the attitude shift across the entire team. So what we didn't really expect was how this actually impacted the other professional staff working in that area and how they are now feel they're much closer to the students. They understand the students better. They are far more involved in that and know more from that, which makes them better at their job, quite frankly. Okay. We were talking earlier about the importance of soft skills, and this is something that you'll learn in an internship that is hard to learn necessarily when you're in a purely academic setting. You have group work and all these types of things, but sometimes there's nothing like having to work with a very diverse group of peers, age-wise, all different types of things, and to be able to actually work together to accomplish outcomes. So some of the lessons learned from these programs over the years that I would have is you won't get it right in the first year or two. Don't be a perfectionist about this. Don't think you have to have everything planned out and everything perfect from year one. Just take the leap into the program and do it. Don't fear a messy environment they're coming into. That's the reality of employment. How many of us have joined institutions and realized pretty quick, wow, this place is kind of a mess, and it's amazing that it works? How many of us work for universities in the room? Put your hand up. Okay, so you definitely have. Okay. However, do not do cable management like that, ever. Please, God, no. All right, lessons learned, continued here. Don't underestimate students as employees. Some of them, after a very short period of time, are as good, if not better, than some of the full-time employees that have been there for a long time. Some of the advantages they have, they know how to learn. They're doing it right now. They're interested. Think about how you learned when you started your career. What helped you? Find their strengths and interests over time. They don't know necessarily what they're doing. They don't know where they're going. This is a way to help guide them and to have them figure that out. So if we've got an intern that halfway through the first year decides that, networking or working for Ask IT or something like that, I'm not really interested in that, but I really would like to get into cybersecurity. Be flexible enough to move them around and have that sort of flexibility there. So this is a great example from one of our students, which, by the way, now Tara works for Spark, and she's making probably more money than I do. But yeah, my time management skills may not be top tier, and I have an assignment due at 12 p.m. today. So I'm going to finish that off, and I'll see you this afternoon. You have to be flexible for that kind of thing. Those kind of things happen. It does take time and effort. Absolutely, you have to invest in this. You can't just set it up and walk away. We are able to provide a very unique learning environment, an environment that is replicating or is IT systems that are as big, if not bigger, than any of the companies in Dunedin, in New Zealand or around the world. We have very large networks. We have very large, complex systems, and our students can learn from that for sure. And it can be a recruitment differentiator for staff. One of the things that was, as I said earlier, is very surprising is we actually talk about this now when we go out to hire, especially senior engineers or senior programmers, that sort of thing, that we have this program and that you're expected to help mentor the students along. That's a differentiator from the private sector in a lot of cases, that you're actually getting able to be involved in it. Why does somebody want to come work for a university? It's probably not just for the paycheck. If it is, come talk to me. I can guide you a little bit better to getting more money in life. But you're there because you believe in the mission, you believe in what we're doing, whether it be research, whether it be students, whether it be in education, whatever. You believe in that, and this can really be a recruitment differentiator for your staff. So, a little controversial, I'll say that we are all dinosaurs. So these students are untainted by our many years of IT experience, which causes us to make decisions in the way we do and be colored for everything that we do and how we do. They've been digital native from birth. How many of you guys look at the incoming students and realize what year they were born and go, oh God. I know I do. And they are living in the digital environment that we are creating and caring for them. They're there, they're on campus, they're using all these resources, so their feedback is extraordinarily valuable to us. We're able to get these students saying, hey, this system is junk. Here's how it would be better, that sort of thing, that direct feedback. Now, I'm pretty passionate about this, so I'll just say for a moment why I'm so passionate about this. So going back into my photos, this is the first data center I was ever in. Notice the row of fans there and all the cooling. Oh, it was a great data center at my little tiny 2,500 student university in northern peninsula of Michigan in the US. But I got hired in as a student worker to help do the cable management for the data center. And that really just spurred on my career in this. I moved then into the telecommunications side of thing at the university. So I was hooking up 2-pair phone systems for the university. I knew nothing about that, but it was fascinating, and it led me down this road to where I am today. So it does change lives. I couldn't find a picture older than that, but that one's fairly old. And it really does get you to some very interesting places. So if you guys remember back from one of the first keynotes where the gentleman from Siena was talking about SciNet, and he talked about SciNet Supercomputing 16. Well, there's Wallace right there. So it gets you to be able to do these wonderful, great things and to be able to actually really leverage that. So, enjoy working in tertiary education. It's genuinely a very unique environment. I know we like to say that to excuse some of our technological problems, but it really is. And we need to leverage the uniqueness around that environment. That's it.
Thanks. We've got time for one question. If anyone would like to use that opportunity. Great.
It literally is your last chance because I'm going on an airplane right after this.
I'll ask from the point of view of a devil's advocate, but in my years hanging out in Prague with the network administrators there and as a student seeing things around, they used to say, have you ever seen something as reliable student? Does that go to a student you could rely on? In that students have their own priorities and they could drop the work they committed to because their other priorities press. So how much have you been facing that?
So we have, I would say, what I would call about an 80% success rate with our students. In other words, the students come out and they have an extraordinarily good experience. Some of them change their careers. It's a whole thing. But there's always that 20% of students who may have been floating before, quite frankly, don't quite know what they want to do. They may work fine. They may be great employees, but this whole thing just wasn't really for them. And it was an experience on their path, but it's not anything that's going to drastically change their path, other than that now they know they don't want anything to do with IT. So that certainly happens. It really does fall back onto your managers in your organization who are managing your folks and the culture that you have as well. So it really does depend on that. I say in here, don't be afraid to be messy, but also make sure that you have people who do know how to actually do real coaching and who spend the time and the effort on this. They don't have to have all their balls in a row right away, but you do want to, and that's part of my role, is to coach my managers to make sure that they are actually coaching and that they are actually improving the lives of their staff as well. If they can't reach out to a student worker, they can't reach out to a full-time worker either, so there's probably a problem there.
Cool. Thank you, Wallace. Definitely an untapped resource. Thanks to him again. Okay, we're moving now into a birds of a feather session. I'd like to welcome up Nisha from NeSI, Tyler from Genomics Aotearoa, and Murray from the University of Otago. And they are going to host a session called Bridging the Digital Divide, Supporting Aotearoa's Journey to Digital Literacy Excellence.
It's always a dilemma, knowing where to begin and who's going to begin and who's going to do the slides. Anyway, thank you so much for being here on the last day. Kia ora koutou. Good afternoon. I am Nisha. I'm a training lead at NeSI. Maybe we should introduce ourselves.
Hi, Murray Kedza. I'm a scientific programmer at the University of Otago, part of the research, teaching and IT support team.
Kia ora, I'm Tyler. I'm the bioinformatics training coordinator for Genomics Aotearoa.
And our hope today is to get a bit of a discussion going on about what's the training landscape looking like in New Zealand and what kind of gaps we might be able to address going forward in the digital literacy space. So, welcome. We should always start with icebreakers. Definitely a BOF after lunch should begin with icebreakers. So, I have tried to leave a bunch of sticky notes on your tables. Thank you, Figshare. And we could use that to capture some of our thoughts through the course of this BOF. So let's begin with this, which can be fun and it can be pertinent to what we are trying to discuss here, which is what's a skill you've always wanted to learn but you haven't had the chance to do so? You can use the stickies. And if somebody needs a pen or pencil, we're happy to scrounge that up for you. Yeah, just on a random Google Doc would be fine. Yeah. If you want the discussion. Yeah. What is it?
Discuss tables.
Can we discuss icebreakers? I don't know. Talk about it.
Circulate and just go.
Oh yeah, we could talk to it. Yeah.
We're all doing.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. I'll do that. I hope it's long enough. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I really hope you've had a chance to talk to the people around, catch up on many, many skills. I heard cooking, snow skiing, machine learning, deploying Kubernetes cluster. So it can literally be anything, right? Anything that's a skill. Moving on to the next one, which is far more straightforward. If you could invite any historical figure to dinner, who would it be? And why? And do make use of the stickies, and we can all put that here on the wall when we are done. So a few minutes to discuss that. It's a fun discussion. Yeah, that was a hard one.
I can plug it in if you want to run around.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll go around and around. Thank you so much.
That's all right.
Okie dokie. All right. Since we've had a chance to discuss something fun, does anybody want to share with the larger group? Yeah. Anyone else wants to have a go? I'm sure some names must have come up.
Well, I've just put Shakespeare on the sofa and go on, this is Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Yeah, write a sonnet. Yeah. Yeah.
Just sit on the sofa for
Yeah.
your boots.
Good one. Oh, yeah. Anyone? Any more good ones? Yeah, Aditi? Of course you are. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm reading a book called Wifedom at the moment. It's a story about Elaine O'Shaughnessy, who is probably better known as George Orwell's wife. And it's a book about her instead of him, through a lot of research that's done through interviews, diary entries, recordings, and all these sorts of things. Basically about her side of the story. So it's
Yeah.
about the behind a great man is a great woman.
Yeah.
Especially, except for the fact that throughout history and the documentation of his life, she's been completely erased. And so the book goes through that and
Yeah.
shows how she's been erased, or when she's actually been the significant character who's made all of these accomplishments,
Yeah.
rewritten his stories,
Yeah.
or being the person who had the ideas, like behind Animal Farm. She essentially wrote 1984. A lot of his essays were actually done by her, and it's bringing her to life and actually giving her credit for these works and the story and the life she's done.
Yeah. Super cool. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Does anybody else want to share? If not, no? Okay. No worries. Just jumping straight into what are we exactly trying to do here? We do hope to take this time to tell you a bit about the various initiatives that are ongoing for digital upskilling across the country. We do want to provide some bit of insight into the current digital skills landscape and the kind of impact it's had on research nationally. We want to discuss the challenges more than anything else. And we want to emphasize on the diversities in various approaches and target audiences, and of course share some success stories as we go. This is a discussion session. I'm sure you don't want to hear from the three of us all afternoon, so we do want to hear from you, and you do, but I'm not listening to you, Wes. Yeah, so we do want your input on various areas that we could improve on, any sort of gaps in the digital literacy skill space that we can provide support for in the upcoming months. And of course, we are going to have a slider poll, which hopefully, unlike that last POF I had, will work, and we can see live poll results as we go. So we're going to start off with what did we exactly do in 2023? What's upcoming? NeSI is the first slide, so I'll go. So we did notice that there was a lot of interest in Machine Learning 101 and 102, which are two workshops that we've run for a while now. Machine Learning 101, the first time we ran it was 2021. And since then, it has gathered quite a bit of interest. And if you were part of the discussions that Maxime led recently, yesterday, you would know that we shared a bit of insight around how we developed the lesson and what kind of interest we've had for various sessions we have run. Same with 102. 102, we piloted it in 2022. And we hope to run it again in this year, recognizing a bit of demand for that particular workshop. And yeah, we hope to sustain the ongoing training partnership with Genomics Aotearoa, who's our partners in training. We piloted the introduction to containers workshop at the last eResearch in Hamilton. It was a hybrid workshop. For those of you who may remember it, it was a difficult week for most of us. supported the national facilitation for introduction to command line. So this is an interesting bit of a success story we want to talk about, because last year, as part of a national collaboration on software carpentries, some of us got together, Murray, who's from the University of Otago, myself from NeSI, Anton Angelo from Canterbury, who couldn't be here, and Tom Saunders from CER. We sort of got together and we brainstormed a bit about what I think there's a, everybody talked about, I think there's a need for us to do something along the lines of a national collaboration on software carpentry workshops. And we piloted this last year with Introduction to Command Line, running it once every quarter, just to trial whether there's an interest and a buy-in, a sector buy-in for this. And we did get around 20 or a little less than 20 people in each of those sessions, which was great. And we could, one great thing that happened with that was that we could enable the newly minted instructor trainers who went through the instructor training sessions to help out and teach for the first time, which was great. So we basically could help give them an opportunity to do that. And we want to continue with that effort this year as well, and we hopefully will talk a bit about that. The first ever Indigit Data Aotearoa Wananga happened last year. It was a wonderful learning opportunity for all of us, and we were able to offer an Intro to Bash workshop there for absolutely newbies in coding, non-coders mostly, and that was a wonderful learning experience for us, because they could give us feedback on how to improve, and how do we exactly, because as trainers, most of us who've trained for a while, we forget that, how do we exactly interact with absolute newbies who may not even know about the basics of coding. So that was great. And we also got an opportunity to build a closer partnership to support the next gen of climate scientists at ASP, which happened in Wellington. So again, something that we want to look forward to in this year as well. So we hope to bring you more updates, hopefully, when we meet next time. GA?
Right, yeah, so one of the things that Genomics Aotearoa does is runs a training program, of which I'm the coordinator. And the first thing I always say whenever mentioning the GA training program is that we do all of this with partnership with NeSI. So all of our workshops are able to be run very smoothly online because of the NeSI platform and systems. So what we do is we have a portfolio of workshops that range from from introductory right through to specialized. So our introductory workshops are things like an introduction to R or an introduction to Shell. And then we have our intermediate workshops, which start to build on that material. And these are sort of quite broadly applicable to a wide range of scientists. They're not necessarily just focused on the genomics side of things. And then we have our specialized workshops, which are usually very biology, genomics focused. So for example, with our specialized workshops, we have things like, last year we collaborated with the Telomere to Telomere Genome Consortium, and they worked with us to create a very specialized genome assembly workshop. Our introduction and intermediate workshops run together, so a person can start, say, middle of February, they might attend their first workshop, and they'll run every couple of weeks or every 3 weeks so that a person can go from absolute beginner right through to something a little bit more intermediate level. And we run these in sort of a rolling cycle so that a person can come on at any point in the year. We have a lot of people who are, sort of first year, second year PhD students, so they might have data arriving and so they know that they've got a particular analysis that they need to do. I'd say PhD students and early career researchers make up maybe 50+% of the people that we interact with in our workshops. But we also have a fair number of people who are more A little bit later in their careers, they might have worked primarily in sort of wet work science, and then they're now realizing the importance of bioinformatics. They want to make themselves a little bit more marketable and to stay relevant with the current analyses, so they join our workshops as well. All of our workshops follow the carpentries format. That means that people come online and they work with us. So we do what's called live coding. So we'd be working through the material at the same pace as everybody who's attending. And we have a team of people who are helping out. So if anybody runs into any issues, they sort of get resolved in real time. Annually, we're running around 20 to 25 workshops in a year. And these usually have between 15 to 25 attendees at each workshop. And those numbers fluctuate depending on whether they're more of our intro courses. These are usually a few more than 25, and there's a very high demand for these. So we've got a workshop that was advertised last week, and within an hour it fills up, and we've got 20 on the wait list. So we know that we need to keep working on these. Our more specialised workshops are often a much smaller group because you're working with a very niche topic. Outside of our sort of regular training portfolio, we also take part in things like the Metagenomics Summer School, which is a week-long intensive event that runs up in Auckland. This is where people from all over New Zealand come together for quite a specialised set of workshops. As Nisha mentioned, we were involved in Indigidata, and I think really what that shows is the training capability that we've built. So when something like Indigidata or a new initiative comes out, we have a series of, we've got the platform and we've got the skills to be involved in training from that early stage. Cool. Over to you, Murray.
My slide's much smaller, but this is the specific stuff that I coordinate at Otago. So we've got carpentries workshops, so we do both the data and the software carpentry side of things. We've got we support many of the training initiatives through GA and NeSI as well. So this is stuff that's local at Otago, but we have a big presence. We've got a big presence with the other training that goes on. Alongside that, we also have, I suppose I'll call it my flagship event, which is the Otago Bioinformatics Spring School. So that's predominantly Otago-based researchers, but we also have, it's supported by NeSI and GA, and we have people from around the country come down to Otago at the end of November, hence it being the spring school, not the summer school. And we have them all for a week going through various bioinformatic topics, and we have roughly 40 to 45 people for that. On the other side of things as well, we have the trainer training. So Otago supports that alongside NeSI and GA. We've got the 3 memberships within New Zealand at the moment. So that's bringing on the capacity for delivering the instructors. So we're training people up within our groups to be able to continue doing or instruct on these workshops. I could probably flick to the next slide because I can speak to at least some of these. ResBaz, so outside of some of these events, there's these national collaborations that are going on. So Nisha mentioned earlier the introduction to command line stuff that we had, but also coming out of a strong leadership position from CER is ResBaz Aotearoa. Otago was part of that as well. NeSI had people involved. GA, I think, had some people. But so this is a 1-week event in the middle of the year to give people like a taster that they can then go on and go, cool, these are some topics that I'm interested in. Again, the majority of these trainings are targeted towards the postgrad, early career researcher sort of level and staff. And I could probably hand back to Nisha to talk about the other points on that one.
Yeah, just a quick roundup of other things that are happening, and most of you might know about it anyway. Various universities have their own set of training initiatives. Auckland Uni has their own, Canterbury has their own, and we do want to do a quick call out at the end about this wonderful series of software and data carpentry workshops that have been planned by the University of Canterbury for this year. So I hope to share that with you a bit more in detail towards the end. Last year, we do want to say that there was a massive amount of training efforts put forth by the CAD Research Hub at the Victoria University of Wellington. Quick call out to that because a lot of them were instrumental in our establishing that national collaboration for software carpentry that's been ongoing this year as well. So just a quick shout out to all of them. And of course, various training initiatives within CRIs for the scientists at CRIs. So yeah. Slido, this is the fun bit. So please use your phones to scan the QR code, and we can do a live Slido poll. Please let me know if you're not able to scan. We can help you out with that. No. It could, who knows? Open to interpretation. Once everyone has had a chance to go into it, I will turn it into the presentation mode so that we can see the live poll. No? No luck yet? Okay. I am moving to the presentation mode.
When you say workshops,
Yeah.
do you mean New Zealand? Because I went
Yes.
to workshops in New Zealand, in the States.
No, those won't count, sorry.
I'm just asking, because it's a workshop, and I say
Yeah. No, anything here would be New Zealand only, if possible. Yeah. That might skew. No.
I'm just saying, it's ambiguous.
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. Just clarifying that by workshops, I mean something in New Zealand. We would want data to represent what's happening in New Zealand for this particular instance. So this is the first one. None is 71%. Okay.
Because everybody here is very well trained.
Yeah. We're in a room of experts. Yeah. Yeah, probably that. Yeah, we knew this would happen. 1 or 2 workshops, 20%. Not bad. Okay. How many training workshops did you help or teach? 0, 76%. We should be able to change that by the end of this hour, shouldn't we? Okay. 1 or 2, 10%, 5 plus 10%. That's good. That's really good. 3 to 5%. Okay. Okay, this we really, really want to change. Are you a certified carpentries instructor? No. So if training falls within your interests or your if that falls within what you do, within the purview of what you do, we want to talk to you and figure out what is stopping you from possibly not being part of the instructor training pool. Why have you not gotten certified yet? We want to understand why, if possible. And let's have a discussion about all of these questions. in the last 6 months have you received training news at who have you received it? NeSI, GA, University Internal Channels, others. So I hope those who have selected others have had a chance to specify where. That's good. If not, please let me know and we can figure something out. Okay, fun bit. What training topics would you like workshops to be offered on? Cloud engineering and architecture. So that's interesting. Yeah, NeSI might have something on that soon. Geospatial. Remote sensing. I'm guessing that's yeah, remote sensing. LLM, AI, of course. Good software practice, or was it software practice and the good is just floating there alone? Which one? Yeah, coding, intro to R, there you go. Intro to Python, cloud FinOps, common workflow languages. Let's talk more about this, Paul. And let's split into our own groups and we'll also, spread out and let's have a chat about what exactly these questions were about. Some of the challenges that may have come through these questions. Training, certification, what does it exactly mean for those of us who are new to the world of carpentries? What does it mean to get certified? Why would you ever get certified? What does that mean to get certified? What do we have to offer through those instructor training sessions? What are some of the workshops that we already offer that you may not know about? So let's have a chat about it. And why is it that nobody attended or taught workshops?
Because they weren't certified.
They weren't certified. So let's take, what's the time? Yeah, let's take about 10 minutes to have a chat about this. Come back and discuss what we found.
So apparently I should come to your workshop.
I got the skills to
So, I don't need the mic. So, I really, really hope that all of you got a chance to talk to the people sitting next to you. I hope it was a good conversation. I definitely had a good conversation in one of the tables this side. We chatted about we chatted about the fact that there are still people in this room, and I'm guessing more outside, who don't know the whole point of how does the carpentry structure work, and what does it mean to be part of the community, and how do I find the funding for instructor training? That was one of the questions, which was interesting because I think that is one of the challenges that people believe to be an obstacle on their path towards instructor training certification. So I want to take a minute to talk about that, although this is not a Carpentries BOF, I'm well aware, but still. So the Carpentries, which is a global, fiscally sponsored global organization at this point, has several member organizations throughout the world. NeSI is one such member. We pay for an annual subscription. So because we are a national organization, we pay that to support all New Zealand researchers and with their digital upskilling. So use us as the resource. So the funding that you're talking about is something that we're already paying for you. So if you are interested in instructor training, what NeSI does in collaboration with Genomics Aotearoa and University of Otago, who are also members at this point in New Zealand, we basically announce an expression of interest towards the beginning, usually around this time. So once towards the beginning of the year and once towards the middle of the year, we ask for anybody who's interested to go through the instructor training process to submit that very quick EOI form. And that sort of helps us determine the urgency of who needs to be sent through the session and when. So that's about it. And we have a certain number of seats that we get through our memberships, and we allot those seats. We offer those seats to you, depending on who submitted the EOI and who's interested. So on the funding side, we got your back. So please do keep an eye out for the UI announcements when they go out. That's the best way of figuring out whether or not it fits in with your schedule, whether you're available, because these instructor training sessions, they happen through 4 half-day sessions. So it is about finding the time to do so as well. So, and you do get certified at the end of the course. So you do get a certification. So that's the carpentry's instructor training bit. On the like collaborating on the teaching side of things, which is one of the challenges that we talked about towards the beginning. I think Marcus said something interesting, which is teaching should be part of the infrastructure. We talked a bit about infrastructure and collaborations this morning at the keynote today. And just bringing that back to this discussion, that teaching or upskilling your own, that's what helps the infrastructure going forward, doesn't it? Because without teaching and without upskilling, you're in a standstill. You're not really moving forward. And this helps with our thinking and our strategizing. So that's an interesting bit that had come through. Anybody else wants to share? Because I'm talking so much and we have a few minutes left.
Well, just a note on the upskilling is it also just makes a more effective use of those resources. Instead of just struggling around with, you know, oh, I'm trying to get this code to run on X machine or X cluster, you have the person trained up to at least begin that process. So, you know, you're not wasting cycles in a sense. So.
Anyone else wants to have a go?
So I think that we mentioned here that principles like quality assurance or some coding principles would be like more from a theoretical point of view of and how with examples of how to apply them would be useful more than like getting into coding raw, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Along with good software practices, as you say, what the difference is between intro to R and how to use HPC with an R script. So not just signing into on-demand, but like what do you actually do to get it set up and well done? What's the best practices there would be really useful.
There's a group in the Nordics to kind of address your point of kind of software engineering skills called Code Refinery that has some really interesting lessons on that front, which go deeper into the software engineering practices for scientific software that might be interesting as well.
Anyone else who might want to share? No?
I guess maybe one question is sort of the balance between more advanced training versus attracting essentially newcomers to HPC. And I was just wondering, just the question I'm putting to people present here is whether they feel like we should attract. We have this funnel where these people coming into HPC and we're providing intro, or do we accompany people in
That's an interesting point, because that is the hope, that we do support you through the journey and not just introduce you 2 minutes. Introduce you to the idea of getting onto the system and using the HPC, and then boom, you're left alone to handle whatever else comes your way. So the idea is to, and that is exactly why the national collaboration through these many institutions help, because each of us, we are one organization, right? We can't, you're not part of all of it. So collaborating helps you bring the brains together and to think about what's necessary. And that's exactly what we were trying to do. So for those of you who did contribute through the Slido and through these conversations, this would help us figure out what things we should plan ahead for, and what kind of trainings we should be including that we're not looking at the moment. So thank you for that. And since we have 2 minutes, I'm going to wrap up fast, very fast. So just to note that right before you leave, please do leave your email addresses in this notebook here. We are going to send you all these details. We're going to send you a few more Eventbrite links and a link to subscribe to the NeSI training mailing list as well, which will help you be posted, remain posted for any and every update that we get on workshops and any training opportunities that may come up in the upcoming months. And yeah, so we will also make sure that you get a good opportunity to see the updated announcements for partnerships and any opportunities that might come up amongst organizations. And of course, we hope that we continue with these. We hear back from you as we go, and this is not the end of it, this is just a beginning of a conversation about any needs that you might identify within your own little groups as you go. Because all of us here are more than happy to just have a chat with you and recognize what's needed and can help you out with what's necessary. Yeah, invitation for continued engagement, resource sharing, and development. So just a quick overview of some of the upcoming workshops. So like I mentioned towards the beginning, I don't know why I have 2 mics. University of Canterbury has an in-person, they've planned a series of in-person workshops. It's going to be in Christchurch, so they have told us that they've graciously allowed anybody who's in Christchurch and willing to attend the workshops, they can attend them. So it's free, but you have to be in Christchurch for that. I will share links to, like, we'll make sure we'll send out emails, and I'll make a note of every email address that you might pop into that diary. Intro to R, so GA is offering an Intro to R online free session on the 28th. All of these are free, by the way. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It'll be online on Zoom. Registrations are now open. I will share a link to that as well. And we want to tell you about the long read genome assembly workshops that's coming up in March. Registrations will open on the 12th of February, so that's coming up. RNA-seq data analysis, another regular GA workshop coming up on the 20th of March. Registration opening on the 26th of February. Machine Learning 101 by NeSI. It will be online on Zoom. We are accepting EOIs at the moment. Introduction, and it will be in March. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. It will be in March. We haven't confirmed dates yet, but it'll be in March. Introduction to HPC on NeSI. So that's HPC carpentry, the introductory course that we just talked about. That will be online in March. Again, date to be confirmed. We're still figuring out the availability of our trainers. Introduction to command line is part of our software carpentry national collaboration that Murray and I talked about. That's going to be online and in April. So once everything's ready in terms of Eventbrite and registration links, we'll send that through to you as well. As you might have noticed, we've tried to bring the 2 workshops to your attention, Machine Learning 101 and Introduction to Command Line, because if you are happy to help or co-instruct either of these, please reach out. We really, really, really need your help. And we say this all the time, and people have graciously, they've given up their time to help us out. Please, if this interests you, reach out to us, and we would love your help as a helper or as a co-instructor or instructor. Any help we can get would be great. Thank you. And these are our email addresses. Please reach out to us with any questions at all. The three of us are more than happy to help you out with any resources or information you might need. Like I mentioned, please join the training mailing list, which I will send through to all of you after this for any training updates we might have. Jorge has to run. So do we. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good rest after this. I know we have one more session, but afterwards, thank you so much for being here, and yeah, happy journey home. Talk to you all soon. Thank you.
With that dramatic build-up, the musical touch, we're about to begin our next session, our second last of the day. Again, thank you for sticking with us right to the end. They saved the best stuff for the last of the conference, so you're making the right choice. Join me in welcoming Marcus Gustafsson. He's from the University of Auckland, Waipapa, Taumata, and he's going to share a day in the life of eResearch.
Thank you. There was more to the story behind the music there, so for those who recognized it. What is, okay, just, I wanted the buff, but then I realized I like my voice, to hear my voice better myself, so you can just heckle me from there, but you know, so Mark, what were we listening to? Yes, exactly. And the thing that sort of I like about it is that it's two, so there was John wrote the first bit, and Paul wrote that second bit, and had nothing to do with each other, and then they just put it together, and it's a little bit of a controversial bit, because some people hate it, some people love it, but it is a classic no matter what, so. Anyway, what I was going for is that eResearch, I'm not even going to try to define it, I'm going to talk a lot about around it, but sometimes it seems that we bring together a whole bunch of things that are not necessarily, you know, one simple thing and one single thread. They come from all sorts of bits, and we just mash it together somehow and make it work. So on that note, thank you for that introduction. So I'm Marcus Gustafsson. I'm the eResearch Operations Manager at the University of Auckland and in the Centre for eResearch. There's a lot of things that go into that one. I was originally a center manager, but it was apparently too administrative. And we're no longer a center, so it goes a little bit odd. Before that, I had 1 foot in NeSI as a service delivery manager. So the trick there is that at some point I made a wrong turn because the word manager sneaks in there. So I'm not a practitioner. I'm not going to talk to you about anything technical because I can barely keep my laptop going. But in that heart, I'm still the old physicist. I haven't published anything for 15 plus years. And I guess it shows the background we often come from, I'm going to go into more detail, is that we have people that are trained in research, sciences, and they come in, they learn skills. How they learn them, where they pick them up, that's always a little bit of an interesting one, but it's a journey there. And I personally, I've never felt I've lost that connection. So while I'm well out of my time, well out of practice, I still feel and think like a scientist, even though some days I curse all the scientists because they come with their impossible demands and we're going to somehow make it happen. So now, bear with me for a second here. So I guess the key one here is that I should start with a greeting. I'm originally from Finland, okay? So welkommen. It's a Swedish-speaking minority in Finland. Tervetuloa in Finnish. I'm also, one of my EV affiliations here in New Zealand is Ngāti Tumatauenga. So I'm the landless tribe. I'm a reservist in the New Zealand Defence Force. So I have a whole bunch of various bits and pieces, but at the moment I'm wearing my university hat. And while I'm going to talk about things, I'm going to use CER as an example, but it's not necessarily, this is not an Auckland pitch to sell Auckland, okay? We're not here to say, do what Auckland tells you to do, you know, I would have wanted to do a how to build a eResearch center sort of blueprint. I'm not qualified for that one. Mark might be better suited for that bit. I'm only going to show my own experiences in the last 10 years or so. And from the operational viewpoint, a little bit of view into what goes on around in a university setting in general, but take away from that one. And my goal here is to I think Wallace already started us up how we can more openly discuss things that are not always that easy to admit, that our universities and institutions aren't always perfect. It is a journey, it's a maturity thing, we learn as we go, but overall it's a fun ride. So let's go a little bit further here. So, and if I can get my technology to work, we'll be go. Disclaimer, so this was not Auckland telling others how to do stuff. All on me, I have actually not showed this to Mark, so this is a reverse top cover, so he's not liable for it. Yeah, so let's go into the first bit. Now, I call it an eResearch support unit. If in the US with probably a cyber infrastructure and whatnot, there's a historical bit. ESSU was the old thing before CER. And even the Center for eResearch is no longer a center. We moved past that. We're now a platform. Next time around, we'll probably be something else. It just shows the nature of things. It's very hard to determine what is a thing and what it should look like. But I'll use this as an example. Oh, by the way, I read my abstract. The abstract has nothing to do with this talk. So on the left-hand slide, for those who actually wanted to follow the abstract, I made a poor attempt at keeping on with that one. So there's like two threads in this bit. So I will only talk to the one on the right, though. We support researchers. Cool. Not gonna, okay, now we're gonna decline some phone calls. Not gonna talk too much about, well, first, the why. What is an eResearch unit and why does it exist? Well, we're there to help researchers do things that they would struggle with or that they don't have access to or things like this. 3,000 researchers, that's out of about 13,000 staff and postgraduates. So it's significant, but there's a bit to go. Okay, not everybody is going to need eResearch support, but I have a feeling that 3,000 is not the limit. There is room for growth. Yeah, and we limit ourselves to only research, because that's the way silos are constructed in our organization. I look, Otago's put in teaching there. That's beautiful if you can manage it. It just becomes a bigger scaling problem and all sorts of things. But the way we're set up, we focus only on research at the moment. But remember now, university is the size of Wanganui, so there's plenty of land grabbing to be done in that space still. So what does it consist of? The center, I mean. We have an academic director sitting over at the wall there. We have the occasional hangarounds, postdocs, PhD students. They're not strictly speaking the center, although originally we were an academic center. But the key one for us is for service delivery is our professional staff. And now with the platforms model we have, you can sort of see where we're going. I try to break it down. My identity politics is not entirely up to date, but I'm trying to keep that sort of thing in a factual bit where we can go. We have 13 sort of standard specialists, 16 more senior ones. This is mostly to do with experience and pay rates sort of thing. Special project managers and yours truly. 20 of them are permanent, so they work on core services that the university wants us to keep going. We have 11 people on soft money. It's usually project funding, either strategic or it's research grants where researchers come in with a special projects that we're not funded to do and we work on those. Right now we're in a lucky situation where we have actually big strategic things going. 13 of our staff have PhDs. One underway where is some? Okay. Anyway, there we go. Hopefully be 14 very soon. We have, this was a harder one, maybe 9 people with sort of formal IT developer, systems engineer background, whatnot. And then we have an eclectic mix of others. Laura from the library, sorry, keep bringing up, and mostly with an interest in some type of science, and then picked up tools and tricks on the way. 9 of us are women, 5 on the permanent one. So we're not, this is just stating of fact. That's not necessarily a good number. It's not necessarily where we want to be. It's probably an okay number, but we could do better. If you look across We come to where we probably have less women in the system space, more in the engagement space. Don't know if that's a natural thing or whether we should be looking at, getting that improved. I counted roughly 12 nationalities, give or take. We have one with Maori heritage, no Pacific Islanders. When there was the call earlier about we should have people that come are Maori be able to do AI, data science, whatnot, it's a hard ask. We're going to have to train those people ourselves. They're not going to appear from anywhere, but it's a hard one because getting people into the door that we can carry on the journey, it will take a while. So let's be realistic. It's not going to be simple. Right. Now, everybody loves an org chart, right? So I go against the old bit, never put an org chart into a presentation. I do feel that since we're talking about how an eResearch support unit could look like, it's kind of important to know how it's governed. Early on, you just need champions. You need people that care, people that want to drive you, motivate you, give you a chance. They might not have money, but at least they can get you going. They might get bits and pieces here. You need the community represented. It can either be an advisory board of researcher, it can be an advisory board of people representing research. You need some sort of strategy. That's usually either you make it yourself, or if you have a governance board, they are responsible for delivering that one. We're still waiting for our final one. I think it's sort of ready. But just to give an idea, so right now, we're hosted in a faculty. They take care of all the mothering of us, but we're reporting to the DVCR in the way of strategy. Now, to give you a context of here, this is the plan for the future. This isn't really tested yet. It is that the eResearch governance group isn't just across the likes of the eResearch support unit. It's across everything eResearch in the organization. In this case, there'd be a NeSI one. The digital services is our IT organization. Anything happening in the library sort of thing that touches upon research, it would be a coordination bit for the governance board to go there. Now, when the word governance comes in, you expect them to be able to resource it to, i.e. money. We don't have that budget yet, but hopefully that is coming. Then they can actually say, here's the strategy, go and do it, and by the way, here's the resources to do so. That is a good place to be. If you're starting out, you're probably going to be at an advisory board level with no money, and you're going to have to figure out where to beg, borrow, steal, get the resources you need to do something, make something happen. We'll go a little bit further. Resources. So the trick here is to figure out what you want to do. Do you want to do something for a researcher, feed them for a day, or want to teach them to fish? Do you do bespoke things every single time, or are you going to go down and try to build shared services that can be reused? We sort of done our decision. We try to get down the automated, scalable, shared platforms type thing. But then we have the special projects where it's worthwhile because it's so exciting or interesting, or they just happen to need that little help along, where we do this bespoke thing too. But it's a tricky one because you can only scale so far with bespoke things. So you don't want things to become a maintenance burden. You need to be able to start and finish, or otherwise you will never do anything than a certain amount of things. Rod Wilson earlier talked about deadlines. Often in academia, we're good at doing aspirations, we're creative, coming up with ideas, but in practice, we need to sort of limit ourselves. What do we need to do by when? Particularly when resources are limited. You need a service catalog. You need to have some idea of what type of services you are providing. You need some sort of description around it. Who can use it? Does it cost them money? What are they going to be? Can they use it for what purpose? How much of it can they have? And cost recovery keeps popping up. Currently, we operate on no cost recovery. It's 100% subsidized. That could change when you come around and ask for, 600 terabytes of storage for your data somewhere. Someone in university might think maybe you should contribute a little bit towards it. So, yeah. Oops. I'm showing the service catalog maybe. Oh, well, sorry, there was a list here on the side sort of thing. So we do the traditional data management, compute, whether it's in-house like the Nectar type things, or whether we are just a quick gateway through to NeSI for here's HPC. We still consider NeSI's HPC service our services because we want our researchers sold them on, so we just push them straight to NeSI in that regard. And figuring out the training, the sort of more enabling people to let know about various bits and pieces, and this covers everything from those training things, software carpentries, red caps, whatnot sort of thing, machine learnings, things coming out. Visualization services, they're a little bit less scalable in some of those spaces, but we try. The same thing put into a table format for those who just shows we have a reasonably rich landscape. Of course, we want it to be more. It evolves. Some things are going to have to be removed at some point. I guess the key one here is to try to figure out that we're not falling over each other with our IT services, with the national providers, make sure that it's clear that if I'm a researcher and I want X, what pathway should I go? And might be that X, Y, and Z look alike. What advice should I have? Should I go to X or should I go to Z? So finding that out is always the fun bit on the way, because researchers are time poor. They won't be able to look at everything, so you need to be able to advise them of what path to go. Again, same thing, a little bit different picture. I think this is more engagement-focused one. I'm not sure if it was Tom or Laura that did this one for engineering, I think. Stole it from somewhere. And it's part of the thing. Not every research is the same. You might have to engage in different ways with different groups. Some people, they just want the hard tech specs and access. Other people need to be sold on the idea that this is a good way of going and they're going to be supported in the bit and if we're going to help them along because they just don't feel comfortable around digital literacies in general. The trick here is that all of these cost money. Okay, I should probably add that on that staffing bit, our 2023 numbers were about 3.7 million. That's mostly people. And 1.2 million of that was soft money that we brought in through various MOUs, contracts, whatnot. In addition to that, there was about $1 million in CapEx. Now, if you start looking at then, you add in the NeSI bits and whatnot, and the university's investment into eResearch things starts closing in on 9 to 10 million. That's a lot of money per year, considering the research revenue for the whole university is about 230 million. So it's a significant investment. So while we always say, we're not getting enough money, well, we are, but things cost. If you want to do eResearch, it's not a cheap game. There's a lot of, ain't cheap. So service delivery models, not that exciting, but the big ones here is that you got to decide how wide do you want to go, how deep you want to go. Do you want to be domain specific? What does production mean for you? Do you need best effort next business day? Do you need high availability? Probably not. Disaster recovery? Maybe. Service level agreements versus innovation, because you have limited pool. The more time you spend on doing something fancy here, the less time you're innovating and building something else. And the question is, should you be building? Should you be reusing? Should you be outsourcing? On-premise versus cloud? CapEx versus OpEx? There's all these things. Sustainability. Staff, people. Now, I put there something just to wake you up because I knew it. So often we don't talk about it here because we're a very technically focused one. People are the important bit. And to get good people, you have to pay them real money. Okay? So you cannot pay staff too well. If you want to retain staff in the long run, and this has been a constant battle, and thanks to our director and hard work, the deans, the whatnot sort of thing, have to go on to bat, and we managed to get to where, in a university setting, we think we're doing all right. Could we do better? Maybe, but it's hard. University staff aren't usually paid private sector money, but when it comes to eResearch skill sets, you're competing with the private sector. When you have people that are good in data skills, they got their machine learning down to a dot, you can lose them very easily to industry if you can't come close. Now, give you some ideas with the figures there. It's not all about money. You know, the working from home stuff, I know they will say, we can work anywhere. Well, it turns out, we kind of have knowledge transfers required. It's not that easy when you train up new stuff, so you have to come together somehow. So you need to figure out what's a good balance. Right now, we, for instance, have 2 days at home, 3 days in the office, just to help to get knowledge transfer going. I put the culture there. That cake is the picture of our culture, just to show I'm entirely hopeless with generative AI. Friday meetings are cake meetings, okay? Bring people together. There's the social aspect. We have all whites, you know, platforms, sorry Martin, are a little bit more introvert, engagement a little bit more extrovert. We try to mash it all together to get some things going, not only within the thing, and it's set by the leadership, but also across. So you got to work with your local IT, your ORCs, you know, all these things, and you need some type of agreements of how to operate, and otherwise you start falling over each other or don't know what one hand is doing another one. And that's a constant thing. Things are evolving, you know. We don't expect ever to be right, we've done it. It's a consistently, something changes somewhere. We're probably the last to know. Figure it out. To help along things, I mentioned here metrics. I won't go too much into it, but traditionally people measure stuff in how much is being utilized. For a long time we went, ooh, cool, we're showing a big utilization numbers. Now we're starting to think, oh, maybe that's not a good thing. Using a lot of something is probably not always a good measure. Maybe we should look at it the other way around. Maybe using a less of things is better. Maybe that's more sustainable. Maybe that's showing how much effort we're putting in to try to be effective in the resources we have. Future. We got to keep changing. The service landscape will change. The trick is, who do we hand over stuff to? Can we stop things doing? Senior leadership comes in and say, hey, we need something now in the AI space. All right. Are you going to give us more resource? No. We're going to have to stop doing something. What should we stop doing? Can we hand something over? What can be done in-house? What's been outsourced? Growing cost pressures. Storage, where Wallace is gone now, but you know, it's a problem for all of us. You know, they just keep going up, up, and up, particularly the change from CapEx to OpEx. Licensing, ridiculously priced. Cloud, we're not even ready to go research full-scale cloud yet. But digital operations and infrastructure is increasing everywhere. You know, it's not just that we're doing more, we have more people doing it. Med school came on board. They haven't done stuff for you know, the last decade, but then in the last few years, they've been growing, and now they're big users. You need policy standards, compliances, institutional, national, international approaches to things. There's a lot to think of. I'm going to stop there. That's just a quick bit of our picture bit. Did I manage? Yes. Thank you.
With 30 seconds left to spare.
One last comment. From Russia's talk, she had one concept there that I loved. She talked about harmony in progress. I have a feeling that, you know, if you're going to operate eResearch, you're going to have to take that into your soul. Harmony in progress. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Marcus. Does anyone have any questions? We have time for a question or two.
Thanks, Marcus. How do you describe the rate of adoption of eResearch within the university? I mean, are there some departments that are resisting, some that are embracing? Is it sort of uniformly adopted?
No resistance. However, there might be the thing that, well, I'm going to build my own. It's still very much trying to get them into the fold to use shared services is tricky. And if the service doesn't exactly match what they're wanting, they tend to, well, if I have money burning in my pocket, I'm going to go out and buy something and do it on myself without really thinking of the long-term costs and sustainability and maintainability. Cybersecurity is a big one. I didn't really mention it here, you know, that's probably the biggest reason they shouldn't be doing it, because things don't go well.
Great. Time for one more? Yeah. Right.
If you have the ability of power to change one thing.
Right now, personally, I would get a chief finance officer sitting down and really explain to me how this CapEx to OpEx thing's going, because on the IT side, you know, they come cloud first, but no one's thought about how to actually pay for it, that I can see. Okay, maybe it has been taught, it's just that I'm not aware of how to do it. I don't want to scare anyone, but there's a bill coming that we need to figure out how to deal with, and you know, how we do. Because right now, we buy kit, we can use it till it's red hot, but when you do stuff in the cloud, you know, you're going to accumulate costs for forever if you don't shut things down. So, yeah.
Great. Cool. Thanks very much, Marcus. Join me in welcoming, or thanking Marcus for his presentation today. Welcome to the last BOF of the day. We are going to be talking about is this community for me? Finding your community, feeling comfortable in your community. And we'll get into sort of some of the challenges and some of the aspects and ideally some of the things to think about to overcome what I titled here is imposter syndrome, but the more I looked into it, I don't think that's quite the right definition of it, and or it goes above and beyond that. So first off, to introduce myself, kia ora, my name is Jana Makar. I'm Communications Manager with New Zealand eScience Infrastructure, and I butchered your name yesterday. I'm sorry, but so do you want to come up and...
Hello everyone, my name is Aditi. I am the Partner Manager at the Pawsey Supercomputing Research Centre in Perth, Western Australia.
You didn't say your last name. That's the part that I really ran over. Really
Oh, did I not?
quickly.
My name is Aditi Subramanya.
Subramanya. Yeah, great. So our two organizations are among the logos that you see on the bottom there. So NeSI and Pawsey are among a group of founding organizations that have come together to create an Australasian chapter of women in high performance computing. And so yesterday we gave a lightning talk that shared a bit more about that community. And you may have seen this slide. And so I encourage you to scan that QR code to learn a bit more about the chapter and the things that we do, because we covered that in the lightning talk, and we're not going to get into it too much here. The other incentive for scanning that code and joining any of our channels, whether it's on Slack or our mailing list or that sort of thing, is anyone who joins during the conference days is going to get put into a draw to win a WHPC prize pack. Included in that prize pack is going to be this very funky bum bag, so you can carry anything you want there, strap it on, take all the compliments, and then point people to our website to become part of the community as well. So it's a nice way to catch attention and start a conversation as well. If people say, well, what is that chapter about and what do you guys do? And then you can get them on board as well and join the community. So our main goal as a chapter is to really encourage and support people to create some positive change and encourage more support for diversity and inclusion within our sector. And one of the things that our chapter does is we'll host fortnightly Zoom just meetups, chats. And the inspiration for this, this topic for this BOF came from an incredible Zoom meetup. They're only supposed to be an hour, and we talked for an hour and 45 minutes. And we touched all sorts of topics, from training and workforce development to again, feeling part of a community, finding a community, and everything in between. So I really wanted to dive deeper into this concept of imposter syndrome and feeling part of something in a BOF setup, because one of the things that we do as a chapter at these conferences is when we host BOFs, we like to come out of them with some tangible things of action that you can take to create some change or to start conversations at your organizations. So ideally, based on what we share today, we'll have a nice little document that you can take and leave in your lunchrooms, on the table for people, or strike up as a conversation with your manager, or again, find other like-minded people and keep the conversation going. So yeah, that question about, is this community for me? And I find that there's a couple of challenges that go along with this. And one of them is finding that community to begin with. And that could be a case of, if the community itself isn't very good at being spreading word and being on the right channels and getting advertising or awareness out there, then that can prevent you from finding them. But also sometimes the names that communities give themselves or terms used you may not quite identify with, and so it doesn't, come across your radar as something to join. Our chapter in particular struggles with this a bit because we're part of a global organization called Women in HPC. But you may have seen on our logo that we have WHPC with a plus. And so we've added that plus because we actually want to welcome in people and involve people in our chapter that is beyond just gender. So we're looking for a real mix of different backgrounds and perspectives, and people from all walks of life, I think was one of the terms that you used. And so we've tried to add that plus, but we find that that W at the front can still be a bit of a barrier, and people may not see that as a community for them. Even though the plus is there, that W is quite big and it's at the very beginning. And so if they don't identify with the W part, then they may not consider themselves welcome. And then the next three letters, HPC, can actually be a bit of a barrier too, because if people don't consider what they do to be HPC or not as involved as they might think they need to be. So my role is I'm a communications manager. So I don't actually log on to the systems. I don't do anything about maintaining the systems. I've learned some of the jargon so I can smile and nod along and talk about the systems a bit. But I struggle with feeling like I'm a proper member of the HPC community because of my role and my background. It's not technical, it's very much communications. So in terms of like these terms that we see, and then we've got definitions for them in our minds, and that can kind of block us about whether or not we fit in a community. So feeling welcome and belonging, that's the other challenge, is that, okay, maybe you've gotten past the letters and the terms that are used in the community's name, you've joined in. Do you see people in that community who look like you, who have the same backgrounds as you, who work on the same things, and or who welcome you when you do join? So once I got part of this community, I saw that there's other people in comms roles, like Aditi and others. Okay, maybe I do belong here, right? And then when I joined in and we started the Slack community, that's one of our most active places for our community members. And when someone joins, they get a hello waving emoji. People say welcome. They, ask them questions about what they're doing. On our Zoom calls, we try to really make it a very casual and conversational place so that people feel like they can just pop in. And I had a community member who I think had heard about us through channels. I won't say them by name, but they had sent a direct message and said, I'm not sure, is this a community for me? I work in the science field and I'm doing some of this sort of stuff. And I said, yes, definitely, you're a perfect person. You should definitely join. So I think people try to, if they're not sure about whether it's for them, they tread softly, they tread cautiously until they can find things that, again, make them feel welcome, make them feel part of it, make them feel like they belong. Because you don't want to come in and be the outsider. So when I looked up sort of more of a definition about imposter syndrome, it does talk about with people feeling, that they might be undeserving of their position, and it is a self-esteem thing. And so what got me questioning about whether or not I should have titled this as a session about imposter syndrome is I think it's a bit more than that. There are issues around confidence, and again, feeling like that sense of belonging, and I think that's tied in with self-esteem, but sometimes it's not just achievements, it's just whether or not they should be there. And we don't even get into the level of whether or not they've achieved anything yet. So I think sometimes when we're talking about this in our whether it's the roles that we're taking on in our job or the communities that we're finding through community of practice, it is just sort of a bigger, broader thing that does have to do with, inclusiveness, again, the diversity of the community that you find when you're there, your own confidence level, and then how you are treated and greeted and made to feel comfortable once you actually arrive. So it's not just you, I think it has to do with the whole community itself. So that's a bit of scene setting, and the fact that I think this is a really broad topic, and there's lots of ways that you could do it and talk about different aspects of it. But we're going to try to get into it a little bit today. We do want to get into some small breakout groups and do some sharing about your experiences or things that you could share to other people in terms of some tips and advice. But we're going to start off with a bit of a little lightning talk, again, sharing some personal experiences. Aditi is going to share some of her thoughts on this, and then we're going to do a little icebreaker exercise before we get into our breakout groups. So I'll hand it over to Aditi.
Thank you. Thank you. I have the wrong notes up, so give me a second. I was in the background, like, just while I find these notes, here they are. I've started like I have like a really good friend at work. Well, we became good friends because of work, and we do some things together, and we've started to catch up monthly this year, or decided to, because she's super cool, super smart, and doesn't share it. And the comms person in me is just like, share your stuff. And so I was messaging her before, because we're now catching up every month. I'm frantically like taking notes so I remember everything we talked about. And I'm like, you need to send me your stuff so I can write something about you, so you can put it on your LinkedIn and then be great to the rest of the world. And she's the same. She's like, no, it's not that great. She's literally in the last 2 months done something with our GPUs and using AlphaFold, the protein folding thing from Google, that no one in the world has ever done before. And she's like, oh yeah, it's just basic. I'm like, dude, come on, like, show yourself. So yeah, shout out to her, because she should be here today. But my story ties in a little bit around what Jana was talking about around, do I belong in HPC or not? I'm a comms person, I don't do the technical fancy stuff. And we came up with this term last year when we were doing our survey in the Women in HPC community, because we were like, oh, what are our people? What are like the comms and engagement people? How do we identify? And we talked about HPC adjacency, because we're like, yeah, we're a part of this community, and it took us a long time to accept ourselves in this community. And now I kind of want to drop the adjacency and just be like, yeah, we're people in HPC, because we're all contributing to it in a different way. And it's all about like this acceptance of yourself and confidence in yourself and the people around you, and lifting them up as well when they're feeling the same as you are, and really thinking about, why am I here? So yeah, that was my kind of thing, that I'm not a part of HPC at all. I'm just a comms person, or I'm just an engagement person, and that's just not true. And now anyone who says to me, I'm just a thing, I'm just like, no, you're not. You are more than that. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more in our breakouts, but I tried to break down my thoughts around imposter syndrome or othering. I think Jana has talked about it before as well. Othering is kind of where I think you're in a room full of really cool people, but you feel like you're not that person. Is that right? Yeah, something around there, broad definition. So how to overcome this? And it's, all well and good for me to stand up here and say, you should do this and this and this, but it's a lot harder than that, and I acknowledge it, and I struggle with it every day. But I tried to break it down into 4 things that I thought can help you when you're in the moment, when you're feeling flustered, and you just need some tools in your pocket. So acknowledge your feelings, recognize that you're feeling overwhelmed, or you don't feel like you belong, or you're feeling like an imposter, and then tell yourself, no, I'm not that, because you're here for a reason. All of us here are really, really clever and really, really cool and do a whole range of different things. And I think the fact that you are different is what makes you belong here even more. Because if we're all the same person, then it's kind of boring. So acknowledge that and remember that, yeah, your feelings are valid. Like, yeah, sure, you can feel like you're an imposter or you don't belong here, but you do. And just remind yourself that, yeah, you're here for a reason. And then talk to others, right? So what I mentioned about my colleague before, I recognized that she wasn't, she didn't believe in herself. And because that her and I are close in a lot of other ways as well, even though we met through work, I was like, yeah, let's do this together, because she has a very different perception of me than what I have. And I was like, actually, dude, I need your help as well. So this isn't about me helping you. Can you also help me with this? And we'll just do this together and see how we go. So find your person, find your team, find whoever it is, and just say, hey, like, can we chat? And if they say no, well, then go find someone else, who cares? Or join this community. The QR code's not on there. Join our community because we have a whole lot of cool channels, including one called, is it called Trigger? That's a real interesting channel, because that's where people will just talk about bad stuff that happens, or interesting stuff that happens, or juicy things that happen. And sometimes it's anonymized, sometimes it's not, and sometimes you can basically figure out what they're talking about. And it's great, and it's a safe place, and it's a really nice place to just chat, vent, get it out of your system, and then everyone is just so supportive when you do that. And they call out the and they tell everyone that everyone else sucks and all that kind of stuff that you need, so it's great. So find your people, and we are Women in HPC Plus, and we are definitely your people if that's what you need. And then also, the other thing is develop a bit of a plan, like a quick response plan. So for me, I know that when I'm feeling really uncomfortable, I check in with my feelings and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Why? Is it because I need to call someone out on something that's making me really uncomfortable? And it's usually when I'm experiencing the negative emotions, it means that there's something that I need to do. I need to call someone out on bad behavior, which is super intimidating, but I've challenged myself to do it, and it's really, really hard. If you're having these negative thoughts around whether I belong or not, well, what are the words that you can use to help yourself get out of that mindset, and remind yourself that actually you're pretty great. So have a response plan, have some self-talk, and arm yourself with words, like words that you can always just go back to remind yourself, actually, yeah, no, I've got this. And then understand your strengths and weaknesses. I think it's really nice to see that the world is kind of changing, where failure is really encouraged. You're really encouraged to say, actually, no, I'm not really good at that stuff, but I wouldn't mind learning more about it. I'd like to improve, or yeah, I'm not really interested in doing it. I'm not really great at it. I don't really want to do that. I want to go do this. And it's encouraged, so it's really nice. If it's not, then we can all actively work to be leaders in changing that. Changing it into, if you embody a culture that you want, hopefully it'll trickle out to other people as well. So basically, top 4 points: acknowledge your feelings, talk to others, develop some words or a plan, understand your strengths and weaknesses, and play to them the way you want to. Yeah. And that's really, really hard to do. It's not that easy. So, just practice it. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Didi. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is I want to get you up out of your chairs a little bit and get your minds primed before you actually get into your breakout groups. And one of the things that I thought would be interesting to do is I had got online and found an imposter syndrome bingo card, which sounded cool, but also sad. Like, we shouldn't have to play that as bingo. But instead of the card, though, I grabbed a couple of the phrases, and I wanted to just post them up on the wall and have you come up and put a tick on the paper that you identify with or that you have experienced. And I'm really curious to see if everyone puts a tick on every single one, or if there is one that maybe rises up as a common sort of feeling or experience that we've all had. Just curious to see that. And I think that will hopefully prime you before you get into some breakout groups, because I want you to talk about those experiences or share whatever. You don't have to share your stories if you don't want, but if someone else does, talk about maybe some things that they could do to navigate that, and what they would do next time, or what you've seen worked or not work. So an example of some of these phrases, and you can have a little think about whether or not they apply to you. And some of these are strong in terms of the language of like never or always, but I'd say put a tick if you have experienced this maybe more often than not. Yeah, just to see. So for example, would you never tell someone that you meet for the first time that you work in engineering, math, science, or HPC? Think about that. Oh yeah, that one. Do you always share credit with others, even if it's you who did all the work? Do you always remind others how much you do not know? So qualifying statements like, oh, I'm not very good at this, or oh, I don't know about this, but I'll give it a go. But if you start off with saying, no, I don't know anything about that, how often does that happen? Do you always hold back when working in a group or a team? Do you never voice your real opinions? And then the last one says, do you never challenge yourself too much? So really putting yourself out there and going beyond maybe your boundaries. So have a think about that. If you have a pen, if not, I've got a spare here. Go up and give a tick to any of those that you have experienced. And I just want to see where all the ticks line up. And then when you go back to sit down, maybe try to sit at a table with at least 3 or 4 people. Maxine, that's the tiniest tick I've ever seen. All right, last minute to add your ticks. And then please find a table with at least 4 or 5 other people at it. Oh. Okay. we're going to take a little look and see where the ticks lie, where they ended up. They're all truthful. And yeah, cognizant that we're all probably on a spectrum of these, except someone who said, I don't relate to any of them. So they will be a good person to give advice about how they cope through life. Yeah, I think the always and the never, I wouldn't necessarily identify with that either. It's very situational. It depends who's in the room, depends how I feel on the day. If you're, had a great start to the morning and you're confident, can be very different to if it's a day when everything's going wrong and you feel like it's all working against you. But so thank you. We'll keep that in mind if we do this activity again. I think we'll change the never and the always to sometimes or often or occasionally. Really interesting to see lots and lots of ticks on the always or occasionally sharing credit with others, even if you're the one who did all the work. So I'd like to understand in those groups, do you do that because you are Canadian and just being really polite and friendly and just wanting to make everyone feel involved? Or if you really did do all the work, why don't you feel like you want to take all that credit for yourself? So unpack that a little bit. Why do you do that? Are you overly generous with the credit, or what's preventing you from just accepting it and being proud of it? Couple more ticks on the telling someone that, when you meet for the first time, whether you work in STEM, probably depends on just, again, the situation and if they ask and where they work. Probably equal amount of ticks here on never voicing your real opinions. That is probably also very situational. Is the president of the company in the room or the organization? Are you just with colleagues around a water cooler? You probably get different situations there. But again, if you ever bite your tongue, it would be worth unpacking why you do that. Do you feel like you are empowered to do that? Or if you do it, what you say wouldn't be valued or respected or heard? And why that might be. Oh, not challenging yourself too much. That's got a few more ticks. A little more than these two, but not as much as the sharing credit. Oh, lots and lots of ticks of reminding others how much you don't know. Interesting there. Again, why are we leading with that instead of maybe not even mentioning it? Just if someone gives you a challenge, just dive in, and you'll figure it out they'll figure out if you've known it or not. Yeah, true. Yeah, some are circled, and this one is bolded. And I think similar to holding back when working in a group or a team, probably similar to, this has more ticks than the voicing opinions, but I can see how it's a little bit similar, right? If you're sitting back and not necessarily contributing to a group's progress, why is that? Do you feel like you aren't able to contribute as much as other people for some reason? But again, if you're part of that group, your abilities and the things that you bring to that work is just as valuable as everybody else. So own that and feel comfortable in that and feel confident in that. So now you've hopefully sat at some tables with some people you don't know, but maybe some friendly colleagues as well. We're going to ask you to do some sharing. But again, this is a safe space. It is being recorded, but but with all the chatter, they're not going to be able to hear anything. It's just going to be a buzz of people talking. If you have a personal experience of this circumstance that you're willing to share, put it out there, because I think it would be really interesting to see what did you do about it, or did it just happen and it's always been eating you up inside ever since? Or if you've wondered, I tried this and it didn't work, maybe other people around the table could give you some tips or advice. And especially too, if you've tried the things that Aditi had mentioned, again, did that work well or not? So that's one of the questions is do you have sort of a personal story that you'd like to share from one of these scenarios? What worked, or what advice would you give? And then, or what questions do you have? And when we break back into our big group, we're going to open the floor, do a bit of sharing from your groups, but then we're just going to get into other stuff that we haven't touched here. If there's another question that you want to broach or another sort of topic or aspect to this, then we'll get into that. But for now, do a little bit of sharing in your group. We'll do that for about 10 minutes, and then we'll break back into a big group discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, the slide's on there, right? Yep, cool. Okay, so we'll probably regroup in about a minute. Thanks.
One, two, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say yeah.
Do you want me to do it as well?
Maybe I'm gonna take one photo in the back of the room to get it, and then I'll take notes. And yeah, if you roam, that would be great. Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. You can keep yours and give it to us.
Hello. Hi, everyone. It's me again, trying to extend my words. Okay, let's open it up to the floor. So it's clear that you're all having great chats. Of course, it's going to be about the questions that we asked you, and nothing else, because you guys are great. Who wants to start? Who wants to tell us what you talked about? And if you don't, I have a group that I want to pick on because I heard something really interesting just then when I walked past. So, you know, okay, no hands. Group at the back. You guys were talking about karaoke. So here's a mic. Tell us about how you're fantastic non-imposters at karaoke. Yeah, can we pick the song?
We were basically talking about introverts versus extroverts, and that introverts can find it hard to compete with extroverts in a situation. So this person beside me was going around the table asking whether they'd be happy to get up and do karaoke or would they rather die. And
could we have a show of hands?
I was saying that in a large group of people, you're always going to have a range. That range of that spectrum.
The vocal range, or?
Could be. But I'm happy to stand up and jazz hand it versus I want to crawl under the table.
Yeah, and I guess in a more professional setting, not after work drinks and we all head off to karaoke, but in a meeting, for example, right? Like it's this classic thing about how people will sit back in silence and have like the best ideas. And then you have some vocal people who also have great ideas or repeat someone else's or whatever the case be. So as people in this community who want to encourage equity and inclusivity and things like that, it's kind of what I was speaking about before when you want to call something out and feeling comfortable in challenging things. So as a person who is observing another person who has a great thought or an idea, but then they don't have that confidence to stand up and say it, it's including them and asking them, say, like, I know that you have this great idea. What do you think? If they don't kill you afterwards for including them. So. Yeah. They'll include it in the chat. Yeah, awesome. We have a hand up here. There we go. Yeah.
My computer died, so I'm going to rely on Nisha to be taking notes for us, so I can run the mic.
Okay. No, I just wanted to spring on that because before, like, we're talking about the contribution being the willingness to actually open our voices and talk and speak in a meeting, but in some ways, I think that misses the fact that sometimes an equally valid contribution is listening
and we don't often value the best listener or the best listeners. And they may be slower thinkers that aren't going to want to contribute at that time, but will come along later and say like, hey, I'm not sure everyone was kind of listening to the room. Were you hearing this? And have we thought about this? And so changing that culture and, you know, knowing that there's that space to appreciate the contribution of active communication by listening well and taking on board and seeing everything that's going on is also really valuable.
That's a really, really interesting point. I haven't thought about that before. That's really cool. So, you know, I'm going to say this ironically, but, you know, meetings are about getting things done and doing actions. But so how do you do that? How do you build that into a situation where someone has some really valid things that they could raise after and still let them be heard after the fact when you're making decisions in these rooms? Like, yeah, because that's a really good point. And they should still be heard.
Horses for courses, I guess. There are some meetings when you've got to make a decision.
Yeah.
It's not always going to apply. But I guess it's, you know, being flexible to know that there are different different ways and making sure we've got that set up in terms of the inclusion of there being opportunities for that space as well. I think I turned this off, but
something that just popped into my mind is something that I've been trying to do a lot more consciously is that when I go into a meeting, I may not necessarily have an agenda, but like all of us are on like some sort of cloud-based system now. So I usually have notes, and then I can share that link and say, you know, here are my notes, here are my thoughts, pop yours into the document. And that's live. You can do that after or before or whenever, really. Yeah.
So as a facilitator, I often look at the attendance list and figure out who's talked more than the percentage of their presence. So 1 out of 22, if someone's talked more than that ratio, then at some point I'll stop. And I'll say, does anyone else have any thoughts? And then I try to wait until it's really uncomfortable, like 10 seconds. Because that gives people the time to think about whether they have thoughts and whether they want to share them. And sometimes I'll also say, if you don't have thoughts that you want to share vocally, but you want to share it, you can DM in the side in the Zoom chat, and I'd be happy to raise it. And that, I found, has helped, especially in larger meetings, where there's a lot more, I don't want to talk because everyone else is better than me. So just on that topic.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just helping being a voice for other people. Yeah,
and there's one back there, but as you pass him, Keith, the mic, I'll say too that actually that makes me think of, again, I've realized now, looking back, that even framing this session, we're talking about how you personally can overcome your imposter syndrome. Why should you be the one to change? We need to talk about the changes that how we run meetings and how our organizations work to incorporate feedback to be more inclusive. Like, we should be changing the system, not necessarily changing ourselves. We can't always do that, and we don't necessarily have the power to make those changes. So hopefully any tips that we get here can help you cope with the systems that we're in. But that's a great point, that if you have the ability as a facilitator or as a person in a meeting, doing that listening, having that observation of who speaks, and trying to change the system a bit more too, rather than ourselves personally. Keith?
Yeah, one thing I often try to do is very consciously have some sort of poll or survey or something. Sometimes it's even just a silly question, but at least to get everybody moving and everybody throwing in their thoughts. That helps for people that don't really like speaking up but are comfortable to write things. Problem with that is that you're really dictating the question, which makes it quite narrow. But just using a Google Doc and having more open questions there, some people are quite comfortable writing stuff there. So that helps for those people that are more introverted. I think it is still difficult for the people that would like more time to collect their thoughts. That still is a complicated one. Yeah.
Has anyone had any experiences with these terms and these titles and identifying them with them? I know sometimes that the term research software engineer is a tough one because people might not consider themselves software engineers or necessarily working as researchers. And even, again, the HPC part of our women in HPC, do people struggle to identify with being part of in the field of HPC? Or others that I'm not thinking of, bioinformatician, you know, in our science domains, things like that.
eResearch specialist,
eResearch.
A lot of it is not software directly. That
We had a little thread on this table about having multiple identities in your career and then trying to figure out which one you tell people you are in a given moment, even if you're 3 of them at the same time. So of having trouble. So those identities can both be great when you associate with them, but if they're fractured, they're confusing to yourself. So yeah, and others. So.
It doesn't help with the imposter syndrome when you have more than one identity, eh? Questioning yourself. Anyone else have a story they want to share? Anyone have a story they want me to share for them? Yeah. Yeah, Emily? Oh.
Some of the discussion we had here at the table was for the credits, and I guess one thing perhaps that came out was it's good to be generous with credit, and I see more issues with not giving enough credit than actually too many credits, personally. But maybe you want to say something, June?
I actually, when we were having the conversation, I said I don't give enough credit to others because as a product manager, I kind of never actually do the work. So I kind of assume everyone knows I don't actually do the work. So I don't, in turn, I don't give credit, and I ended up taking some. But yeah, so that's something I need to work on deliberately.
Just going back onto the identifying with HPC and RSE and that kind of thing, I guess the definitions can feel a bit alien sometimes. RSE, I picture someone that's, constantly on Vim and knows how to, do, speed up everything, parallelize it all, make it 1 billion times faster, that kind of thing. And I'm not that. I'm definitely not that. I'm not helping others do that. So, but I am doing a lot of software. I am creating software. I am researching. So I've never known quite how to identify with these things. And you see these groups, there's been things about research, software alliances, that kind of thing. And is this for me? And I typically think no. I get in touch with women in HPC and say, I don't build high-performance computers, I don't do that kind of thing, so therefore it's not for me. But I think, like you say, Women in HPC has been incredible at being like, yes, this is for everyone, please come along. And I think if more communities are like that, I don't know, we would just build better communities, learn a bit more from each other, that kind of thing.
I think as humans, fundamentally, we categorize, but we forget that we can be more than one thing. So if you have like even the slightest touch point in there, well then yeah, be part of it, it's fine. That's your contribution to that thing. So if you have, some long distant relation or did a job in there once and interested in it and want to be a part of it until you don't want to be anymore, or until someone hopefully doesn't kick you out. So you're not a part of this. Yeah, we don't want to be like that. And I don't think we are, especially for the guys in the room. Like, we need allies as well. Join the space, be a friend, and everyone here is an advocate. So, yeah.
Nibbles. I guess, was there any other other random general questions that you wanted to broach or ask or raise?
If no one's going to say anything. So this isn't really a question, it's just like a thing I discovered was quite helpful is a lot of the time if you're running these sorts of communities, especially when you run them in person and you have like an event, like let's do an HPC catch-up or something, is having someone in the group who you've allocated to go and talk to the new people, because it's so easy to form into your little friend groups and your little cliques. And it's not bad, that's awesome, that's what you want, but just those new people to have someone whose role it is to go out and like specifically, that's their job.
Yeah,
It really helps.
Yeah.
Yep, over here.
Great tip.
You know, when you're intimidated by people and sometimes you're encouraged to imagine that person naked, and then you don't worry about it. Not going to give that as advice. I've worked for a long time now, and what I have found helpful at this point is to realize that everybody struggles with this. And once you realize that, it lessens your angst.
That's perfect, and that's kind of the goal that I was getting to with this activity as well, is there's lots of check marks from lots of people in this room on every single one of those pieces of paper. And yeah, again, at certain points, whether it's in our career roles or again, personal communities of interest, that sort of thing, I think you can run into this situation. So yeah, just that reminder that everyone goes through it. You're not alone. Is good. So one last plug, and I'll hand it over to Aditi if she wants to say anything more about this. So after this event, you'll have all signed up to our community. You all want that bum bag. And hopefully we'll get some more so that we can do some more draws for it. But to keep things going, SE Asia is going to be the next opportunity.
Yes, so SE Asia is in Sydney in 2 weeks. It's Supercomputing Asia and it's long form. It's self-explanatory, really. It's a supercomputing conference in our region. But we are hosting a sundowner on the Thursday night. So that's code is how you register. But we've also posted all the details in our Slack channel, which you're all a part of now. So you'll be reminded plenty before then anyway. But what was I going to say? You don't need to be a part of the SE Asia conference to attend this. It is not a formal sit down and listen to a bunch of presentations and then you might get some food and drink. It's food and drink and people might talk to you at the beginning. So come along. It's a really nice community. You don't have to be a part of the conference to attend this. It's free. It's at Amazon's building, so I think it might look kind of cool as well. Yeah, just come say hi, enjoy yourselves, and yes. And I wanted to say, what did I want to say? If you guys do have questions later on or something pops into your mind, we're pretty active on the Slack channel. So just message us in the group, privately, however you prefer. We will be there.
Yeah. And if you want us to do more things like this, these BOFs are great and they're super valuable, but if you just want to get together for some beverages and nibbles, tell us and we can see if we can organize something. And either as hubs to events like this or, yeah, off-season as well, outside of the conference circuit.
Yeah.
So thank you all for coming. We did it. We made it. We're at the end. There's drinks and nibbles out there. Please return your lanyards. And again, thanks for all your contributions and for attending. And that wraps up eResearch New Zealand 2024.